As set forth on your warrant, meetings will be Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday of this week, and Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday of next week. Before proceeding with the business of the meeting, however, there are certain preliminary matters to be taken up. First, permission has been granted for certain members and personnel of the school committee, planning board, board of health, and other boards and committees who are not town meeting members to sit on the floor with other members of their respective boards and committees upon the understanding, of course, that they will not vote. Hearing no objection from the body, such permission will be and hereby is accorded. Secondly, permission has been granted to Milton Cablevision to televise these proceedings. Thirdly, I will now review briefly, particularly for the benefit of the town meeting members, some of the rules for the conduct of this meeting. Any person who is employed as an attorney by another person interested in any matter under discussion shall disclose the fact of his or her employment before speaking thereon. Town meeting members are required to check in and to be seated in the lower part of the auditorium. Citizens and others who are not town meeting members are required to be seated in the upper part of the auditorium beyond the point demarcated for town meeting members. Any town meeting member wishing to speak with reference to any article will first go to the nearest microphone and upon being recognized by the moderator will identify himself or herself by giving his or her name and precinct. By tradition, any other voter of the town who may desire to address the town meeting must obtain in advance permission from the moderator. No such voter thus far has requested permission to speak. By tradition, the moderator will recognize any town meeting member for the purpose of asking a question or requesting additional information related to the article under consideration. The question or request must be addressed to the moderator, who will then direct the question to the appropriate town official. Upon posing questions or requests, a town meeting member shall be seated. Cross-examination is not permitted. The moderator may, however, separately recognize a town meeting member for the purpose of posing follow-up questions. Pursuant to the town's bylaws, the moderator requires that all substantive or complex motions be reduced to writing before submission to the meeting. Now, with reference to each article on the warrant, the recommendation of the warrant committee shall ordinarily be considered to have been presented in the form of a motion by the chairperson, which has been seconded by the secretary or other member of the warrant committee who is a town meeting member. Unless I otherwise expressly state at the time, then, the question to be voted upon under each article will usually be on whether or not to accept the warrant committee's recommendation. In the event the warrant committee recommends a no vote on an article, the question will be presented as a vote on a motion made and seconded to approve the article. That is, members will vote yes if they favor the article and no if they oppose the article as recommended by the warrant committee. When it is announced by the moderator that the town meeting will proceed to a vote, debate will be closed and the question will be put to the town meeting. Upon a question being put to the town meeting, the moderator will first determine by voice vote the sense of the meeting. If the moderator is unable to decide by the sound of the voices, or if his announcement of the vote is doubted by 7 town meeting members standing in their places, the moderator then shall proceed to have a standing vote on the question. If the vote is further doubted by 25 town meeting members standing in their place, then there will be a roll call of the meeting with the town clerk calling the name of each town meeting member in alphabetical order, and each town meeting member, upon his or her name being called, shall rise in place and answer yes or no. No vote shall be reconsidered at the same meeting except upon a motion made within 1 hour of the adoption of such vote, unless by 2/3 vote, provided that the time which elapses during any adjournment of the meeting shall be excluded in computing the hour since the adoption of the vote. I will not read the lengthy section because you're used to it, in terms of the fact that it is my understanding that the warrant committee's recommendations do go to the maximum appropriations, not to exceed Proposition 2.5 limitations, and while it is not mandatory, if anyone seeks to change or increase budgets, it is helpful to the town meeting members to suggest where the money will come from, or, as an alternative, that an increase be adopted subject to an override. With those preliminary remarks, we will proceed to Article 1. in Article 1 is to choose all such town offices as are not required to be chosen by ballot. The traditional election of Mr. James Braxton and Robert O'Mara as measurers of lumber comes up under this article, and I will entertain a motion that they be elected to serve as measurers of lumber. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, they are elected unanimously. Article 2 is to hear and act upon the report of the town accountant and other town officers and committees. I believe you all have received, if not, they are outside, your annual report. This 1995 report contains at pages 228 to 261 the report of the town accountant. The reports of various other town officers, boards, and committees are likewise printed in the annual report. Further reports may be made by the chair or representatives of boards and committees which are concerned with later articles in the warrant. Such reports, if any, will be made at the time of the specific articles in question. I will now entertain a motion to accept the report of the town accountant as printed on pages 228 to 261 of the 1995 annual report. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the town accountant's report is unanimously accepted. Now, there are two committees under this article that are in need of being discharged. And I will entertain a motion that the Asbestos Study Committee be discharged. Mr. James Dunphy was the chairperson. I've spoken with him, and the work of that committee is completed, and I will entertain a motion that that committee be discharged. Is there a second? Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that committee is discharged. The second committee, and I've spoken with its chair, George Carey, the Enterprise Fund Study Committee, which was established last year, has made its report and is due to be discharged, so I'll entertain a motion that the Enterprise Fund Study Committee be discharged. So moved. Second. Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, those two committees are discharged. Article 3 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the town treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of the revenue of the fiscal year beginning July 1, 1996, in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 4, and to issue a note or notes, therefore, payable within 1 year, and to renew any note or notes as may be given for a period of less than 1 year in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 17. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be and hereby is authorized to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of the revenue of the fiscal year beginning July 1, 1996, in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 4, and to issue a note or notes, therefore, payable within 1 year, and to renew any note or notes that may be given for a period of less than 1 year in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 17. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously carried. Article 4 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the collector of taxes to use all means of collecting taxes which a town treasurer, when appointed collector, may use. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town vote yes. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the Warrant Committee's recommendation say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to authorize the town treasurer to enter into compensating balance agreements during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 1996, in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town vote yes. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the Warrant Committee's recommendation say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to employ counsel to represent the town at hearings before the committees of the General Court. Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is the town vote yes. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to authorize the moderator to appoint a committee of 5 citizens to consider such proceedings of the legislature and state boards and commissions as may affect the interests of the town, and confer as they may think expedient with the selectmen in regard to the employment of counsel to represent the town in any such proceedings. The members of such committee to hold office until the final adjournment of the next annual town meeting and until the appointment of any succeeding committee authorized at such meeting. Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is the town vote yes. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 8. To see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the Stabilization Fund in accordance with the provision of General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the sum of $500,000 be appropriated for the purposes set forth in this article, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $500,000 is to be transferred from funds certified as available by the Department of Revenue. The moderator recognizes the chair of the Warrant Committee, Mary Fitzgerald.
Good evening. I think in order to understand the Warrant Committee's recommendation, perhaps we could just quickly go back to where did this money come from. I think I've kind of tried to make it a hallmark of my time as chair of the Warrant Committee to keep reinforcing the fact that all the numbers that we talk about at these meetings are educated guesses, and therefore when things don't come out exactly as planned, that is certainly not anything that's a negative. And in this case, it's obviously a great positive. So if you look on page 12 of your warrant, you can see where the $754,000 in free cash came from. Over the past 2 years, motor vehicle excise has increased 25%, and that shows up as $320,000. Interest, because obviously interest rates went up over the past year and a half, contributed $80,000 to it. And then we have the situation where monies were returned from existing budgets. And the three major components of that was group insurance for $129,000, the reserve fund for $87,000, and the general insurance account for $35,000. Now, I think it's safe to say that this situation may not repeat itself again, that this may be a one-time occurrence, at least in the near future. And I say that because it appears that motor vehicle excise has either plateaued or may even be on a downward trend. The main component of which that's very difficult for us to understand is that the registry developed some kind of a new program whereby they are much more efficient than they used to be. So over the course of the last couple of years, not only have we had increased car prices, but we've also had some measure of money that we really can't put our handles on, which says that the registry is doing things more efficiently, and we're getting commitments more in the year that we're in rather than in past years. And town treasurer has said that in past years, prior years' monies used to amount to more than 50 or 51% of the commitments that we got in 1 year. That now is down to about 31 or 32%. So there was something going on that we played catch up, and at some point, we don't know exactly when, that obviously is going to end. I certainly can state that for this year, the reserve fund won't be returning anything because it's all going to go for snow. And that, in great measure, was why the reserve fund returned the amount of money that it did last year, because we had a good year for snow. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the things that brought in this money, it doesn't appear that they're going to happen again. The group insurance, which returned money last year, we will see a supplemental appropriation in this year's warrant because we have a shortfall of $133,000 because for whatever reason, people who in prior years didn't partake of our town insurance programs switched to it, so that we have a $133,000 shortfall. So I think the message from the Warrant Committee is this is a wonderful opportunity for this community that basically tries to live from paycheck to paycheck to do something very beneficial for all of us, for the entire town. Every single time in the past 5 years that I've heard financial people speak to us, bonding people, they tell us that the main reason that our bonding rate is so good is our ability to pass overrides, because we have obviously nothing put away as a rainy day fund or a stabilization fund. Well, that seems to me a pretty shaky basis on which to continue to operate if we have a choice, and I think we do have a choice with this amount of money. So from that perspective, to have some money in the bank will make us look better to those who review our financial capabilities for bonding. And I would remind everybody that the capital override that passed last year goes out to bond this year, and we obviously have the dump, which you know, is going to be a lot of money, and we want to get the best rate that we can. The other thing that happened as we talked about trying to put this money away is several people would say, well, gee, Mary, we have so many needs. How can we possibly just put $500,000 away and just pretend that it doesn't exist? So to that degree, the Warrant Committee is suggesting that we use the money as our own personal bank. That if we were to borrow, as an example, if we were to borrow the $230,000 that we're going to need to purchase the new fire engine that we have recommended in this warrant, instead of bonding it, if we were to borrow it from the $500,000 and then have the discipline to develop a schedule to pay that money back, we would save the town $60,000. And to the degree that perhaps each year we can add a little bit more to this, we can do more of that self-borrowing. So this amount of money not only is sitting there to make us look financially better, but it's also working for us. And it seemed to the Warrant Committee that this was, you know, the best of both worlds. So we very, very strongly recommend the adoption of this article. Thank you.
Moderator recognizes the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Richard Neely.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The board submitted this article and obviously is strongly in favor of the article. We've had printouts prepared for you, and unlike in prior years, we're not going to hand distribute them. They were located at the back of the hall as you enter the hall, so we hope you had a chance to pick up a handout which provided a stabilization fund comparison. It also included free cash. And I would tell you that you need to include both free cash and stabilization funds in your analysis of how much money other cities and towns have set aside as reserves. And I think the handout, those of you that were able to pick it up, is highly instructive in terms of showing you what other towns have set aside for future needs. We believe that it's a sound financial practice to set aside funds in reserves. As the Chairman of the Warrant Committee has said, these reserves are taken into consideration as financial institutions evaluate the town for both short-term borrowing as well as long-term borrowing. As a board, we're greatly concerned about the need to cap the landfill. And as we do that, we recognize there are many pressing needs on a day-to-day basis. However, we need to think ahead, and we need to self-finance many small capital projects, such as a fire truck, rather than going out and incurring borrowing costs. These costs eat up the very funds that we're trying to use for day-to-day operations. Obviously, financial institutions review our financial statements to set an interest rate. And as they do that, the consideration of reserves is a critical element. We don't want to have our interest rates higher than they need to be, because again, they utilize unnecessary funds that otherwise could be used for day-to-day operations, which we'll be discussing later in this meeting. So the Board of Selectmen asks for your support in funding this article. Thank you very much.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Moderator, Chris Huban, Precinct 4. My question is two-part. How was the number of 500,000 chosen, and where will the other 254,000 go to?
Thank you very much. Moderator will recognize Mary Fitzgerald, Chair of the Warrant Committee, for the purpose of answering the question.
Initially, the Board of Selectmen, when they sent the article down to us, recommended 3/4 of the 754,000 be put into the stabilization fund. The Warrant Committee, in its wisdom, chose to use some of it. So we used about $140,000 to $150,000 of it in one-time purchases, which you will see in Article 9 coming up. The other $102,000 is going to stay in free cash. The reason for that is really very simple. Over the past 5 years, we have gone negative 3 times. And to the extent that you have some money sitting in free cash, if we were to have a negative year again, it just reduces the free cash and we remain positive. And that, again, is one of the very important things that the financial institutions look at when they're looking to give us a bond rating.
Mr. Mullen, you're recognized.
Peter Mullen, Precinct 3. I wonder if someone could tell us what, if any, restrictions there will be on spending this money and how money would be appropriated from the fund.
Mr. Neely,
The
Chair of
legislation specifies that a two-thirds vote is required by this town meeting in order to expend the funds. And that, I think the history of that legislation was that stabilization funds were used for capital projects. And as you know, that we usually take a two-thirds vote in capital projects in the town meeting, so that the legislation specifies a two-thirds vote for any purpose, which is now allowed by the legislation. So any purpose is allowed, but it's still a two-thirds vote.
do you wish a follow-up question, Mr. Mullen?
I would. In the comment to the article, there's a mention of the purchase of the fire engine and, in essence, the town borrowing from itself, if this fund was created, and then borrowing from itself to pay for the fire engine. How would that work? In other words, if we appropriated the money for a fire engine, how would it come about that the money would come from this fund?
Mary Fitzgerald is recognized for the purpose of answering the question.
You will notice in this warrant, we talk about bonding the fire engine, because obviously we couldn't be presumptive as to what this body would do with the stabilization fund. We would anticipate that there would be an article on next year's town meeting that would say we would take the $230,000 or whatever the hard figure is once it's finally developed, take it from that with some kind of a schedule in place to return the money back to the stabilization fund over a period of years. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? The recommendation of the warrant committee again is that the sum of $500,000 be appropriated for the purpose set forth in this article, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $500,000 is to be transferred from funds certified as available by the Department of Revenue. All those in favor of the recommendation of the warrant committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the recommendation of the warrant committee is carried. Article 9 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for capital items, to determine how said appropriation shall be raised, whether by borrowing or otherwise, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the warrant committee is that the sum of $416,299 be appropriated for the equipment and projects listed below. And I won't read each of them, but the total is $416,299. And that included in this appropriation are the sums of $14,085 representing expenses attributable to the water enterprise and $7,263 representing expenses attributable to the sewer enterprise, which are to be included in Schedule A, local receipts, not allocated of the tax recapitulation as water and sewer estimated receipts, and that to meet the appropriation for the replacement of Fire Engine 2 in East Milton, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, will be authorized to issue bonds or notes in the amount of $230,000 under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7-9 of the General Laws or any other enabling authority. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the warrant committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, Article 9 is unanimously adopted. Article 10 is to see if the town will vote to rescind the borrowing authorization voted by the March 1983 annual town meeting under Article 23 regarding a sewer system for the Silver Brook Road area, and to rescind the borrowing authorization voted by the March 1989 annual town meeting under Article 29 regarding replacement of the Granite Avenue pumping station and providing standby power for each pumping station in Milton, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the warrant committee is that the town vote to rescind the borrowing authorization voted by the March 1983 annual town meeting under Article 23 regarding a sewer system for the Silver Brook Road area, and to rescind the borrowing authorization voted by the March 1989 annual town meeting under Article 29 regarding replacement of the Granite Avenue pumping station and providing standby power for each pumping station in Milton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the warrant committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, it's unanimously adopted. Article 11 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of conducting a municipal audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 1996, and further to see if the town will vote to authorize the committee appointed pursuant to Article 14 of the 1978 annual March town meeting, the Town Audit Committee, to make recommendations to the Selectmen relative to the employment of a certified public accountant for the foregoing purpose, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the warrant committee is that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $22,400 for the purposes set forth in this article. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the Warrant Committee's recommendation say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously carried. Article 12 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide to supplement the appropriation to the group insurance budget under Article 9 of the 1995 annual town meeting, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the sum of $133,652 be appropriated from additional local aid reserved as an offset in November 1995. Mary Fitzgerald, did you wish to speak to this? You are recognized.
There are three supplemental articles in this warrant: Article 12, Article 19, and Article 23. One of them is for the group insurance that I already mentioned, $133,000, which is needed for this year's appropriation. Article 19 is $96,150, which are needed for the Board of Assessors to continue a data collection program, and again, that's this year. And Article 23, which is the DPW for snow. Basically, we are taking money from reserved money and hoping, in combination with some aid that has come in from both the federal and the state level, and whatever money we have left in the reserve fund at the end of the year, that we'll be able to meet all of our snow obligations.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee under Article 12 say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 13 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 1996, and for the several categories classified as employee benefits, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town appropriate the amounts shown in the following tabulation under the headings recommended, and those amounts are widows' pensions, 0, non-contributory pensions and annuities, $134,148, contributory retirement system, $2,131,013, administration, $57,993, group insurance, $2,878,185, for a total of $5,201,339. And then included in this appropriation for employee benefits are the sums of $59,904 representing expenses attributable to the sewer enterprise, and $172,367 for expenses attributable to the water enterprise, which are to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated of the tax recapitulation as sewer and water estimated receipts. The sum of $43,493, but no more, shall be used for salaries and wages. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously carried. Article 14 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate to reimburse the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Employment Security for benefits paid to former employees of the town, and to act on anything relating thereto. Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $38,000 for the purposes set forth in this article. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 15 is to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 13 of the general bylaws, known as the Personnel Administration Bylaw, as follows, and it's set forth in pages 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and half of 23. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town vote to amend Chapter 13 of the general bylaws, known as the Personnel Administration Bylaw, exactly as set forth in this schedule, and that the sum of $68,165 be appropriated for the purpose set forth in this article, to be allocated to particular departments by future town meeting vote, and that included in this appropriation are sums of $4,777 representing expenses attributable to the water enterprise, and $1,882 representing expenses attributable to the sewer enterprise, which are to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated of the tax recapitulations as water and sewer estimated receipts. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously carried. At this time, the moderator recognizes the chair of the Personnel Board, Frank McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, elected and appointed officials, and fellow town meeting members. At this time, it's a pleasure and to recognize 13 employees who have retired during the past year. Of course, we would like to do like some private employers do and give them all a gold watch. However, we find that the personnel department budget is in a negative right now. We have Mary Elizabeth Brown, who was an assistant town clerk and worked for us for 20 years in the school department and in the town clerk's office. We have Genevieve Byron, who worked for the police department as an administrative assistant, following 26 years of service, both in the selectman's office and in the police department. We have Mildred Clark, who had 17 years in the accounting department. We had Patricia Crowley, who had 14 years as a traffic supervisor. David Forsythe, who served for 29 years as a firefighter. John McDonald, who was 31 years in the police department. Robert McGee, 33 years as a firefighter. Marjorie Mealy, 10 years as a librarian. Nancy O'Hara, 11 years in the Treasurer Collector's Office. Barbara O'Malley, Secretary to the Board of Selectmen for 16 years. She should get a star. Barbara Smith, Administrative Assistant to the Board of Assessors, who was with us for 15 years and also worked in the school department. Joseph Vogel, 27 years as a firefighter. And John Walker, 29 years in the Department of Public Works. They were all loyal and productive employees, and we want to thank them for the service they gave the town.
Thank you very much, Mr. McDermott. We'll now proceed to Article 16, which is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the purpose of funding cost items for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 1996, and for prior fiscal years, which may result from collective bargaining agreements between the town and bargaining units representing town employees, such sum to be allocated to particular departments by future town meeting vote and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the sum of $481,859 be appropriated for the purpose set forth in the article to be allocated to particular departments by future town meeting vote, and that included in this appropriation are the sums of $6,455 representing expenses attributable to the water enterprise and $2,543 representing expenses attributable to the sewer enterprise, which are to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated, of the tax recapitulation as water and sewer estimated receipts. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 17 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 1996, for the several categories classified as public safety, and for unpaid bills of the fire and police for prior years, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town appropriate the amount shown in the following tabulation. And for public safety, building, the total is $77,692. For fire, the total is $2,498,511. The Milton Emergency Management Agency total is $5,535. Plumbing and gas, $18,548. The police department total $3,701,502. Street lighting, $426,185. Traffic lighting, $24,605. Wire total and $148,153 for a grand total of $6,900,731. And the moderator recognizes Mary Fitzgerald for the purpose of either adding language or making a change to the recommendation.
I have some additional language which would allow us to use the dog license revenue. So at the very end, after grand total, you would add the words, "and to meet said appropriation for leash law enforcement, the sum of $1,882 shall be transferred from the dog licenses surcharge account received pursuant to Chapter 187 of the Acts of 1981, and that the balance of $6,898,849 be raised in the tax levy.
All right, so the additional is, and to meet said appropriation for police law enforcement, the sum of $1,882 shall be transferred from the dog licenses surcharge account received pursuant to Chapter 187 of the Acts of 1981, and the balance of $6,898,849 be raised in the tax levy. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of Chief Affinato is recognized. Before we go to a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I rise to move an amendment on Article 17, Section 2, on the fire department. Excuse me. The top of page 25, under number 2, fire. In the actual column, fiscal year 95 remains the same. Appropriation for fiscal year 96 in column 2 remains the same. The recommendation for fiscal year 97, I would like to make these changes. Salaries and wages, $2,490,059. General expenses, $108,952. New equipment, $55,400. Reopening of the Atherton Street Station, 0. Unpaid bills, 622. Incumbent funds, 0. And vaccinations, 7,800. If I may briefly explain what this amendment means.
All right, is there it's been,
I'm
let
sorry.
me get a second. Chief Affinato has
Oh,
moved
I'm sorry.
to
Excuse me.
amend the fire budget, and is there a second to that motion? It's been seconded.
I'm sorry, I forgot to add the grand total on Article 17 would change. I didn't figure in Mrs. Fitzgerald's change, but it would have been $7,065,053, 7065053.
7 million. Total on fire
No,
is
total.
2,662,833.
Oh.
Is the
Oh, I'm sorry.
the motion to amend. 2,662,833. Is that right, Chief?
Yes, the same as column 2. And the total for the grand total for the article is the $7 million. 065,053.
All right, Chief, you may speak to the motion.
Thank you. What this amendment reflects is a level funded budget that we are required to submit. In it is incorporated the $260,000 that was voted by the people last spring to reopen and staff the Engine 4 station. As many of you may remember, we were told at the last town meeting that the $260,000 would not be enough to reopen and staff this station. Well, we are almost at the end of this first year of operation,
and we feel this amount is adequate to continue the operating this Engine 4 station as long as our budget isn't subjected to the severe cuts displayed in this original article. I ask for your support. I ask you to support this so we can continue to provide the level of services that the townspeople deserve. Thank you.
Mr. Mason? Mr. Manning? Hang on. You are recognized, Mr. Manning.
Mr. Moderator, I rise in support of the Fire Chief's amendment to the Fire Department budget. The adoption of this amendment will assure the citizens of Milton adequate fire protection just for the fiscal year 1997. What they voted for on the ballot last June. At a town meeting of May 8, 1995, I was a co-sponsor of Article 16, that this membership voted to place before the voters of Milton the question of reopening the Atherton Street Fire Station to restore adequate public safety to all of the citizens of Milton. The voters approved this action on June 12, 1995, and the fire station was reopened on September 5, 1995. Upon review of the fiscal 1997 Fire Department budget before us, it reveals that there will be insufficient funding to meet the voters' mandate that adequate fire protection be provided to all Milton citizens. Permit me to draw your attention to page 25 of your warrant, item 2, Fire Department budget recommendation, which the chief has pretty well outlined to you. The fire chief, at the request of the Board of Selectmen, submitted a level-funded budget request for fiscal 97. The spending level of fiscal 1996, and that figure was $2,622,872. The Board of Selectmen reduced that request to $2,541,332, a reduction of $81,540. The Warrant Committee further reduced the budget to $2,498,511, a further reduction of $124,361. When Engine 4 was opened on September 5, the station budget expenditure through this June 30, 1996, will be $248,023. The fiscal 97 salary structure for 4 firefighters will be $136,730, and that does not include fringe benefits. So it is quite evident that the voters' mandate could not be met for the 12-month period of fiscal 1997. I ask this town meeting to keep our trust with the citizens that we represent and support the fire chief's amendment on this article. Thank you.
Mr. Mason?
Mr. Moderator, this to me is clearly cutting the funds to close the station, which I don't believe the Warrant Committee nor this town meeting has the right to do. The citizens of this community overwhelmingly voted to have that station open. I don't think we have the right to circumvent their vote. I strongly object to these funds being taken out, and I hope that the town meeting will reestablish these funds back in.
Okay, at this point, I wish to inform the town meeting that the chair of the warrant committee has pointed out that we have a technical problem. The amount requested by the fire department, if you look at page 82, table 10, was $2,549,132. By this amendment, the fire would be seeking $2,662,833. And under Section 10 of Chapter 2 of our bylaws, this motion is not properly, and I cannot entertain it because it exceeds the amount that notice was given in writing to the town. And I point this out now in that if someone wishes to amend the motion to the maximum sought by the fire department in their budget for fiscal year 1997, I will entertain that motion. But I've conferred with town council, and he agrees with my reading, which is not news to this body, that you cannot exceed the amount that is published in the warrant. The maximum amounts are printed as in table 10 to show the requested amounts. I assume, and I don't know why they're different, because the chief indicated he was looking for a level fund, and I assume that he submitted a level funded budget. So we will move on, and I will be ruling that motion out of order, but I will give you some time, and I will entertain a motion, a substitute motion, to the maximum of $2,549,132, if Chief Afanato so desires. And Chief, you're recognized. And I will give you time to, if you want to adjust the categories to fit it in with the maximum requested, if you like. But otherwise, regrettably, your motion is out of order.
All right. I need time to break it down.
All right. At this point, we have been going for an hour, so we will take a 5-minute recess while the chief reformulates his motion. We are in recess.
Good deal.
Got the camera looking.
Yeah, I didn't even go near
All town meeting members, please take your seats. All members, please take your seats so that we can continue to make progress. Attention. All right, please take your seats. And town meeting member Livingston, could I see you, please? Mr. Livingston? Is Mr. Livingston seated? Talk to the town council. to order. You're on Article 17, and there's a pending motion that I have ruled out of order. Chief Affinato, do you desire to have a substitute motion to amend? My question is whether Chief Affinato wishes to have a substitute motion to amend Article 17, and he's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I apologize for what seems to be some confusion here. The budget I submitted originally from our department was the amount of money that was appropriated in fiscal year 96, $2,662,833. The board chose to discard that budget and submit a budget of their own, which is obviously where this $2,541,000 has come from. In the 10 minutes, we just don't have time to readjust. So I would like to move that we table this until a subsequent meeting.
It's a priority motion to lay on the table till the beginning of the next meeting. Is that right, Chief Affinato?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The Article 17 is tabled till the beginning of the meeting tomorrow night. Article 18. Mr. Livingston, you are recognized.
Mr. Moderator, members of the Board of Selectmen, Warrant Committee, colleagues of the town meeting, and citizens of Milton. I wanted to get up and make a motion that all future salary appropriations by various departments show a separate listing, a line item of department head and salary, regardless of whether there's an increase or not. If you recall, back in 1993, we broke down various salary increases for police chief, fire chief, executive secretary, clerk, and treasurer, and it unanimously passed town meeting that this was the way we would do it. Now, I do understand that that was a special town meeting. That was the special reason for that format. But I would like to recommend that in the future, all department head salaries, whether increased or not, be a line item that the town meeting and the township itself can read and see it in black and white. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Article 18 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $260,000 for the appointment of 4 firefighters for the remanning of ladder number 2 at the East Milton Fire Station. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town vote no. The moderator recognizes town meeting member Robert Mason.
Good evening. Bob Mason, Precinct 8, town meeting member. That article is simply to replace the men of Ladder 2. Ladder 2 is basically just a piece of iron parked there. It's been there for quite a while. Other towns have used it on a loan situation, Lexington, Randolph, both when their equipment has been down. Years ago, we had an override, one of our first, I believe, and part of the money allegedly was going to be for the remanning of Ladder 2. That quite frankly never happened. The override passed, and the truck never got manned. At this point, we have one ladder truck in the town. It's a very good ladder truck. It's a very large ladder truck. It doesn't fit in some places. Unfortunately, that's the trend of the time. Everything is big, big, big. So what we're looking for is a backup ladder truck, quite honestly. In case the newer one does not start, it's mechanical. Mechanical things break down. They don't do it on schedule. Sometimes they do it at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Basically, this is for the appropriation of 4 firefighters, their uniforms, their holidays, their vacations, their medical, and et cetera. Thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? I will. Yes, sir. You're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, Chris Huban, Precinct 4. If this article is not passed, does that mean that the ladder truck number 2, which was appropriated in Article 9, will go unused?
The moderator recognizes the chair of the
No, it does
warrant
not.
committee.
Okay.
The answer is what?
No.
The answer is no, it won't go unmanned. Any further discussion? All right, the vote on this where we have the recommendation of the warrant committee is no. If you vote aye, you are voting for the article. If you vote no, you are voting with the recommendation of the warrant committee that the town vote no. All those in favor of Article 18 say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Noes have it, and the article is defeated. Article 19, to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide to supplement the appropriation to the Assessors Department for general expenses for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 1995, under Article 19 of the 1995 Annual Town Meeting, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the sum of $96,150 be appropriated from additional local aid reserved as an offset in September 1995. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 20 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 1996, for the operation of the town departments classified as general government, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town appropriate the amounts shown in the following tabulation under the heading recommended. Under general government, the Board of Selectmen total is $130,409. Election and registration total $35,861. Holiday celebration $1,178. Insurance general $258,037. Law $85,500. Town office and library buildings $257,471. Annual reports, bylaws $6,300. Selectmen $199,429. Veterans benefits $15,534, for a total of $989,719. For the Board of Assessors, the total is $220,435. Town clerk, total $143,542. And the Treasurer Collector's Office, $205,709. And then included in this appropriation for general government are the sums of $46,217 representing expenses attributable to the sewer enterprise and $53,850 for expenses attributable to the water enterprise, which are to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated of the tax recapitulation as sewer and water estimated receipts. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee under Article 20 say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Recommendation? Okay, recommendation of the Warrant Committee is adopted. I'm just checking to see if there are any unpaid bills, which there are not. Article 21 is to see if the town will vote to allow every Milton resident of 65 years of age or older as of July 1st, 1996, paying property taxes to the town of Milton, a $500 annual property tax abatement on their principal Milton residents, regardless of their personal income or Social Security or any other benefits. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town vote no. Is there discussion? Mr. Livingston, you are recognized.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to amend this article. On the first line, if you'll take out the word every. You're welcome. To see if the town will vote to allow Milton residents of 65 years of age or older as of July 1st, 1996, paying property taxes to the town of Milton up to $500 annual property tax work-off instead of abatement. A work-off program on their principal Milton residents, regardless of their personal income or Social Security or any other benefit. And to further amend it to say, and to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 for the purpose of providing senior citizen real estate tax vouchers for services rendered pursuant to an agreement to be formulated between the Council on Aging, the Milton Board of Selectmen, and 5 interested residents appointed by the moderator, or take any other action relative thereto. I'm under the impression that this article, as it reads, was illegal, and I am under the direct conversation that I had with Mr. Tingus, who filed it. He had never been notified that there was a legal question on his article in a timely manner in order to make the proper adjustments to it. So I would like town meeting's consideration of $15,000 to come from the free cash, or I could probably find another line item. I feel personally that if we can have a lottery to hire teenagers to pick up the leaf collection that was left out in the street for a week and a half, then we can afford $5 an hour to have some senior citizens do some clerical work. So I'd appreciate your consideration.
Mr. Livingston, this is a fine proposal, but regrettably it is well beyond the scope of the article that has been presented to the town meeting, and I have to rule it out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Is there any further discussion on Article 21?
Is it legal, Mr. Moderator? Is it a legal article? This gentleman here says...
Okay, I'm willing to recognize you, but you have to go to a microphone and tell us, the town meeting, who you are.
Mr. Moderator, Mike Geller, Precinct 11. Is the article legal?
Look, I have been informed by the town council that it's in improper form because it will require a petition to the general court. I've also informed anyone who has asked that I would entertain such a motion to amend the recommendation of the warrant committee to put it in proper form if that were to come before me. However, as you can see from the proposed amendment to move from a tax abatement to a workfare program necessarily is in fact well beyond the scope of the article. That's something that should fairly be considered over a period of time by the warrant committee, and is dramatically different. So the answer to your question is, I have been informed by town council that Article 21 is not in proper form. Anyone else wish to be recognized?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
You're recognized, Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, sir. Would you please assist me now in setting this appropriate, as you just stated? What type of motion would I have to make it work here at town meeting?
Mr. Livingston, I'm regrettably, my duties for the town is not to interrupt this meeting for 10 or 20 minutes and try to figure out the proper form for it.
Okay,
So
then I'd like to make a motion that we table this until tomorrow evening, this particular article.
That's a priority motion. It's been moved and seconded to table this to the second. We already have one, so I assume we can have that the second one then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Noes have it. It is not tabled. Is there further discussion on the motion? Mr. McKettrick.
Mr. Moderator, I raise a point of order similar to what was mentioned previously on Table 10 at page 83. There was no requested for Article 21. I'd like to know if we have the same infirmity that you referred to on the earlier article.
I'm not sure what point you're making. There's no appropriation?
There's no requested listed for Article 21, a requested appropriation in the warrant.
But that only related to the proposed amendment that I've ruled out of order. There's no appropriation sought in Article 21 anyway. It's a tax abatement. Any further discussion? Mr. Neely, Chair of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Board of Selectmen is willing to go on record now in terms of the spirit of Mr. Tinkus's article and Mr. Livingston's article, and have all part-time positions posted for 7 days in the Council of Aging prior to being filled, effective next week. So all part-time positions that are currently funded in the budget under the control of the Board of Selectmen, we invite our other boards to join us, will be posted starting next week for 7 days for senior citizens in the Council on Aging.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. For further discussion, we'll proceed to a vote on Article 21. Again, the recommendation of the warrant committee is that the town vote no. So if you vote aye, you're voting for Article 21. If you're voting with the warrant committee that the town should vote no, you're voting no. All those in favor of the article say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The article is defeated. Article 22. See what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 1996, for the operation of the several boards and committees classified as boards and special committees, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town appropriate the amounts shown in the following tabulation under the heading Recommended. Boards and Committees, Board of Appeals, total $20,990. Conservation Commission, total $4,300. Council on Aging, $69,384. Historical Commission, $1,545. Personnel Board, $22,356. Planning Board, total $2,254. Warrant Committee, $13,665. Youth Department, $69,390, for a grand total of $203,884. Moderator recognizes the Chair of the Warrant Committee, Mary Fitzgerald, for the purpose of amending the recommendation of the Warrant Committee.
If you look on page 31, the Council on Aging budget, what I'd like to do is make some changes in numbers that won't affect the bottom line. But if you look at the senior center number, which is $11,786, I want to reduce that to $9,786. And then the general expense line, which is presently $1,900, we're going to change that to $3,900. Basically, what is happening here is that the senior center line item is an amount of money that will be paid by the Council on Aging to the library for a combination of maintenance and use of the Kidder Branch Library. And the number erroneously was put together a little bit too high, and they left $2,000 out that they really needed. So basically, we're just taking that out and making the new number, which will be for the senior center, $9,786.
Moderator accepts the amendment to the recommendation of the Warrant Committee. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 23 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide to supplement the appropriation for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 1995 for the Public Works General under Article 22 of the 1995 Annual Town Meeting, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the sum of $70,000 be appropriated for the purposes set forth in this article, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $50,000 be transferred from the appropriation balance available under Article 19 of the 1995 Annual Town Meeting General Government Insurance General Account, and the sum of $20,000 be appropriated from additional local aid reserved as an offset in November 1995. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Article 23 is unanimously adopted. Article 24 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate to repair and improve the town's water system, including replacing water mains, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the town to apply for and use federal and state funds for this purpose, to see how such appropriation is to be raised, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the sum of $100,000 be appropriated for the purpose set forth in this article, with said sum to be raised from the tax levy, and also that the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the town be authorized to apply for and use federal and state funds for this purpose. The appropriation of $100,000 is an expense attributable to the water enterprise, which is to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated of the tax recapitulation, as water estimated receipts. And the moderator, do you wish to be recognized, Mr. Neely? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The intention here is to commit and finish in the fiscal year a flushing program that is unique in the last 20 years. You've seen, in many cases, hydrant flushing. Unfortunately, we have not provided a full-scale flushing program that's designed by the Amory design engineers. And the intention here is to increase our efforts in the current fiscal year as well as in future fiscal years that are addressed by the next article. So the goal is to supplement what we've spent already this year. We've raised the funds and the rate as we planned our expenditures for the year. So these are expenditures over the next 8 weeks on projects including that flushing program as well as Randolph Avenue and Brook Road.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor of the Warrant Committee's recommendation under Article 24 say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 25 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 1996 for the operation, maintenance, and improvement of public works and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town appropriate the amounts shown in the following tabulation under the heading recommended. The grand total is $7,176,997 as broken out on page 34. The Public Works Department is authorized to spend from the aggregate amounts appropriated the sum of $1,393,713, but not more for salaries and wages, and the sum of $143,600, but not more for new equipment. To meet the appropriation for water operation and improvements for the MWRA water assessment and for the DEP assessment, and to fund the $11,247 deficit in the water surplus as of June 30, 1995, the sum of $1,851,798 is to be raised from the tax levy. The sum of $1,851,798 represents expenses attributable to the water enterprise, which are to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated of the tax recapitulation as water estimated receipts, to meet the appropriation for sewer operation and improvements and for the MWRA sewer assessment. The sum of $50,649 is to be transferred from the sewer surplus as of June 30, 1995, and the balance of $3,318,341 is to be raised from the tax levy. This sum of $3,318,341 represents expenses attributable to the sewer enterprise, which is to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated of the tax recapitulation as sewer estimated receipts. The Public Works Department is hereby authorized to sell at a private or public sale with the approval of the Board of Selectmen equipment which is no longer required by the department, exchange or trade in old equipment for the same or similar type of equipment, and to sell junk, metal, cast iron, and similar materials, discarded meters, whether dismantled or not, in the usual course of its operation, to furnish additional funds for the purchase of replacement items. The moderator recognizes the chair of the Warrant Committee, Mary Fitzgerald, for the purpose of making an amendment to the recommendation.
Solid waste management, last line, solid waste general. We're going to change $245,516 to $215,516. The subtotal solid waste will change from $814,516 to $814,516. The next total will change from $1,967,456 to $1,937,456. And the grand total will change from $7,176,997 to $7,146,997.
Is there any further discussion?
Buddy Packer, Precinct 1. Mr. Moderator, I would request, as a town meeting member, some explanation prior to spending a vote on this amount of money from DPW, some public explanation as to what happened with the fiasco about picking up the leaves, and who's being held accountable, and what's the story. We read different things in different papers. I'm simply asking for the director of the DPW or a selectman to give us some cogent explanation.
Of the picking up of the leaves? Okay. All right. Mr. Neely, can you address that? Mr. Neely, Chair of the Board of Selectmen, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The simplest answer for that is that there was a miscommunication, and in fact, that's something that occurred within the town, and that was a management responsibility within the town. So there was a miscommunication with the vendor.
Any further discussion on this item? Okay. All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay, the recommendation of the Warrant Committee is adopted. Article 26 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to lay out and construct sewer lines to provide sewage disposal for Sherrill Drive, Forbes Road, Marcrest Drive, Milton Hill Road, and a portion of Adam Street. Said project to be subject to assessment of betterments for a portion of the cost of said project in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 80 and 83 of the Massachusetts General Laws. To determine how said appropriation shall be raised, whether by borrowing or otherwise, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to purchase, take by eminent domain, or otherwise acquire easements in certain property for said purpose, and to determine what sum of money to appropriate for the purpose of said acquisitions, and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the sum of $635,000 be appropriated by the town for the purposes set forth in this article, that to meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to issue bonds or notes in the amount of $635,000 under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7.1 of the General Laws, or any other enabling authority, and that the Board of Selectmen be authorized to apply for and use state and federal funds for said purposes, that sewer user fees be established so as to provide for payment of 1/2 of the total cost of the sewer project, and abutting property owners be assessed their pro rata share of 1/2 of the total cost of the project. With respect to abutting property owners who do not apply for connection to the sewer line within the specified period, the town shall provide for payment from sewer user fees of 1/2 of the total cost of the project on public property, and such abutting property owners shall pay from betterments their pro rata share of 1/2 of the total cost of the project on public property, and the entire cost of the project on their own property. Total cost to be included in sewer user fees and betterment assessments includes without limitation study, design, construction, and interest costs. The $60,000 paid previously from general fund tax revenue shall be credited to the town share and shall reduce the amount to be raised from sewer user fees. And the moderator recognized Mary Fitzgerald for an amendment, which I believe will be 3 lines up in the lengthy recommendation, after the words "and interest costs."
3 lines from the end,
Bottom.
from the bottom, or the end. After the word costs, we're inserting the following language: at the rate of 2% above the rate of interest charged to the town.
At the rate of 2% above the rate of interest charged to the town. Anyone have that? Because of the nature of this article, it requires a 2/3 vote. Did you wish to address the article, Mr. Neely? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The purpose of this article is to address a long-standing problem in the Forbes Road area. The language, frankly, is, I understand, obviously extremely complex. The plan here is to environmentally alleviate a problem and provide an economic incentive for the residents in that area to participate in the solution. And what we've structured is a formula that's based upon our previous experience in the Silverbrook area, along with, again, an economic incentive to drive people to join in. So, for example, if all of the residents were to join in, this is the max amount of funds that would be required on a 50-50 cost-sharing basis. If less than the full number of residents join in, those who don't will still have to pay for the public portion, and people who eventually buy their house would have to pay the full cost of all the private work. So the key point is that those who participate today enjoy a 50-50 split, as the residents did in the Silverbrook area. If they don't participate now, they will end up paying full cost for the work that otherwise would be paid for by the town 50-50. So there's a significant economic incentive for the entire neighborhood to participate. And we believe that in disrupting a neighborhood like that, it makes sense to encourage all to participate, and at the same time being fair to the residents. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on Article 26? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's unanimously carried. Article 27, to see if the town will vote to ban the acceptance and/or importation of out-of-town trash into the town of Milton landfill, and to take any other action relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town vote no. Is there discussion? Mr. Livingston, you are recognized.
Board of Selectmen, Warrant Committee, colleagues of the town meeting, citizens of Milton. I get up to request that you recommend that we stop the out-of-town trash from coming into town. One of the reasons that I bring this to your attention is because, take for instance, when the police department wants to wash their cars, they have a special permit and they can wash their cars at the police station. When the fire department wants to wash its truck, they can wash its truck at the fire station. If they were to take in the cars from Randolph, Canton, Dedham, Holbrook, Whitton to wash at the police station, or the fire trucks to wash at the fire station, that would be considered a commercial venture, which would mandate that they go before the Board of Appeals and the Zoning Board for approval. Now, we have changed the municipal town landfill, which had been voted by this town many years ago, that parcel of land be used as a municipal town landfill. No special permit that I know of has ever been issued that this be converted to a commercial venture. We are now taking in trash from Canton, Dedham. Dedham, believe it or not, they only pay $2.50 a week for $130 a year, and they can put anything in front of their house except a refrigerator. You're paying $1.50, and you're really strictly regulated on what you can put in the Milton landfill, but they have an open-door policy. This is a commercial venture, taking the out-of-town tracks. If it's money, everyone can use money. If it's revenue that we're fighting for, everyone can use it. Weymouth could use it, but they turned down the Foxy Lady, didn't they? There are some things that people will have to draw the line on. It's true, there are some things you're going to have to draw the line on. Do you want the town of Milton to become the Saugus of the South Shore, taking in the trash from the whole South Shore, and people not caring what they're throwing in front of their house because they don't have to live with it 10, 15, 20 years from now. They don't have to clean it up when it becomes a problem. You and I will, or our children will, when they come here and sit on town meeting floor. So I really think that this was an unwise decision, and we as town meeting members never had the opportunity to get to say something about it. This is the first time it's been brought to town meeting, and it's been in effect since last September. I think it's appalling. We have gone from 30 tons a day to the threshold of about 99, 100 tons in accepting this out-of-town trash. So I would say the definition of a municipal landfill in the town of Milton is a thing of the past. We have a commercial venture up there, which is violating the zoning bylaws of the town. And I would like to know when the Board of Appeals and the Zoning Board are going to hold the hearings on it, because I haven't heard of any notification of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would strongly urge you to recommend a no vote on taking in out-of-town trash. We have an A rating for our recycling, 43% participation in recycling. Check the C and D and the no participation rating of the 7 towns that we're taking the stuff in from. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time and your courtesy.
You're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, James Deneen, Precinct 8. I represent, in part with others, the precinct nearest to this offending and nauseous event that's occurring. I would urge any of you that are interested in this problem to go over to Quincy and look at what 40 years accumulation of noxious material has done to the area, to their landfill that is now closed. That area was to be a golf course. Some of the smooth-talking individuals in town were convinced that this liaison with these entrepreneurs would permit Wollaston Golf Course to live again on the other side of Randolph Avenue, with a municipal golf course for Milton and one for Quincy. In very short order, this glib sales talk was proved to be absolutely worthless. I want to call your attention to the fact that for 30 years, Bridgewater did what Milton is now doing. And when the dump was shut down on the orders of the state, they asked for some money to help them convert them to their legal obligations under the law. They were turned down. And mind you, 80 or 90 communities in Massachusetts have a similar problem to that which we have. But bringing in other people's rubbish in big, long trucks that carry God knows how much in them is an absolute folly. And we are piling up tremendous obligations upon ourselves, and we're not collecting the money. 3 selectmen who are engaged part-time and 1 person down at the dump can't cope with what these private operators are bringing in. 3 selectmen who get paid an amount of like $2,500 a year shouldn't be expected to. But I do expect them to use their common sense, and they have not been using it for the past 3 years. When I was in private practice with the largest corporation in the Commonwealth, I was engaged in activities that had to do with the acquisition of real estate, the development of real estate, and not in their dreams would they think of engaging in this kind of an operation. And I don't think that our selectmen are doing the right thing by us in permitting what they're doing right now, and it's nauseous for the people that are living in the area, and it's terrible for us to go on permitting it to happen. And this business of we have a capability of accepting rubbish, so let's use it to the maximum for the next 3 or 4 years, is an absolute folly that we are going to live with for a long time unless we cut it off right now. I urge acceptance of the article.
Anyone else wish to speak to the article? Mr. Neely, Chair of the Board of Selectmen, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to make sure that everybody understands that the Milton landfill is a residential landfill accepting residential trash that is inspected by a qualified inspector who is a Milton resident living near the landfill. The Bridgewater landfill, as I understand it, was a commercial landfill not owned by the town, accepting both commercial and residential trash. So again, there's a substantial distinction between the Bridgewater operation and the Milton operation. The issue is that the residents of this town invested in that landfill many years ago, acquiring land. So our parents and residents before us sat here and decided that a certain number of acres was required, and that was acquired through outright acquisition or eminent domain. The town went out, invested in that land. It is a resource of the town. The town has invested a lot of money in that property. The operation has not generated complaints about smells. We will say that obviously the compost pile has generated complaints about the smells, and as many of you know, we've made that decision to move the compost pile out of Milton, effective essentially immediately, so that the odor complaints that have been received, that have been publicized, that in fact occurred, have not been related to the trash for cash. The trash for cash has not generated odor complaints. So that, again, was the compost pile that is leaving. So I guess the issue is The town has a limited lifespan. It's been cut short. Our parents and our people before us went out and planned for a 15-year life. The state has decided to limit that lifespan across the Commonwealth, and that lifespan at this point in time is by the end of 1998. So the question is how best to utilize that resource. And the answer for that is to go out and accept on a rigid basis trash from our neighbors. And our neighbors may live across a line called Dedham or a line called Whitman. They certainly are neighbors. And that trash, as I said, is inspected by a local resident. We believe that when you look at the total cost that has been estimated in the past as high as $9 million, that we would like to get that cost reduced to the neighborhood of essentially $5 or $6 million. Part of that plan is through the acceptance of trash for cash. Part of the plan is through the utilization of clay from the central artery. It's part of a big effort to try to get this landfill environmentally sound essentially by the year in the early 2000s, I think it will take. So the goal is to generate $1.5 million. Frankly, some of that $1.5 million may be used in the near future. We believe that, in fact, the capping of the landfill will start prior to 1998. We believe that there will be a partial capping of the landfill within the next 12 months. We need to provide funds for that capping of the landfill. It's our intent to consider the use of that special fund that has been authorized and for which funds are presently deposited. So it's quite possible that within the next 12 months or at the next annual town meeting or sooner, we'll be seeking state approval and your approval to spend from the reserve or the so-called special fund that's been set aside in order to initiate capping. So, again, in the ideal world, we'd have that landfill for 15 years. It's not an ideal world. We're trying to make the best of the situation under rigid controls. And in this case, we believe that the collection of $1.5 million over the next essentially 2 3/4 years will be turned around and invested right away in the next 12 to 36 months in that landfill. Otherwise, the likelihood is we may come back before you to ask for a supplemental appropriation. And I think that as long as we run that program well, that the hazards are minimal. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, may I ask, through you, the Chairman of the Selectmen, to account how much money has been received to date in the past year for this operation, and how much has been expended in supervision and the implementation with weight, with scales and so forth. I'm asking through you, the Chairman of the Selectmen, to tell us how much money has been received in hand in the past year, how much has been expended for supervision and for equipment to open this very serious threat to the town.
Okay, we have your 2 questions. Thank you. Mr. Neely, you're recognized.
Okay, the easier answer is the answer in terms of the revenue. The program began less than a year ago, and the initial balance on July 1, 95 was $11,163, and frankly, that was through the word is described as odds and ends, but there were several minor settlements that the state agreed we should deposit the money into this account, totaling $11,163. Subsequent to that, deposits were received in December, February, March, and April, and at the present time, the total balance in the account is $240,438, which essentially means that we've received $229,275 over the last 6 or 7 months. In terms of the time committed, I would have to say to Mr. Deneen, I just don't have the numbers at hand in terms of describing to you the expenses that have been involved. I'm running that. Certainly, there is an investment of time by the management of the town I just don't have that number, and we'd have to go back and calculate it for you.
Any further discussion under Article 27? Mr. Livingston, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to make the point, or to try and drive the point home, down at our DPW yard on Randolph Avenue, we have a mechanic who can fix trucks and equipment, what have you. But if he started bringing in equipment and vehicles and everything and set up shop down there, I mean, he'd have to go for a permit as well. It wouldn't be allowed. Town meeting would throw an uproar. The community, when they thought that there was going to be a supermarket down there, went out and collected about 1,000 signatures. Here's a perfect example of where the community has not been part of the process. And then from what I understand from reading the newspapers, we've spent approximately $50,000 to purchase a scale. I was told at the meeting at the Cunningham Hall, on this town meeting floor, and in another public hearing here in the building, that the cost of the scale would come out of the tipping fees for the person who got the contract. And then I'm reading that the cost of the scale is coming out of, not from the contractor, but out of us. The tipping fees that we're receiving, the $89,000 at the meeting the other night, said that the $50,000 came out of those tipping fees for the scale. And I'd like to know why you said $11,000 was put into this fund back in July when the cash for trash, or the out-of-town trash coming into Milton, started in September. The next question that I have is, right now, the violations to the zoning bylaw, Section 4A, earth materials removal and deposit of fill. Section 2, the deposit of building debris, hazardous material of any sort, and industrial waste of any sort on any land not in public use in the town of Milton is prohibited. Now, this was a municipal landfill taking in residential trash. I don't care where you're taking the residential trash. Once you bring it into this town from out of town, it's a commercial venture. So we can, do the public relations. We can put the window dressing on it. The stated fact is, when you bring trash to Milton from Dedham, from Whitten, from Holbrook, or anywhere else, this is a commercial venture. And the town of Milton and the people of this town should vote on it at the polls. And that's where I think it should go.
Mr. Livingston, can you clarify your second question that you've addressed to me? Is it whether or not it violates the zoning law?
Yes, I feel that it does violate the zoning law because no permit shall be issued except upon written application and after a public hearing, neither of which has been done with the department, with the zoning or the Board of Appeals.
Okay, is there anyone prepared to address those questions? The first question is why there's $11,000 in an account for trash for cash was put in July when the program started in September.
I thought it indicated that the beginning balance in July, not deposited in July, but the beginning balance in July 1st, 95 was $11,000, which were miscellaneous receipts received in prior years for materials brought to the landfill. So that was a case where the state said it was an appropriate accounting. DEP said it was appropriate to set up the account and place funds into it. So $11,000 was received from miscellaneous sources prior to July 1st, 95. July 1st, 95 happened to be the beginning of the fiscal year on the report that I was reading from.
Any view on the zoning? Mr. Flynn is looking at it. No? Mr. Flynn, Town Council?
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I think there are two different issues flying around here. One is the concept of a landfill, and one is apparently the concept of an earth removal operation. The use of a municipal landfill, in my opinion, includes all of the operations that are being conducted there today, including the out-of-town trash. And I think that's both by tradition and by our town bylaw. The state clearly agrees with that position because after a somewhat lengthy process, this program was approved by an agency which is fairly strict in its regulation of this area, the DEP. The other type of business, the earth removal business, is governed by a separate section of the town zoning bylaws, and in my opinion, that applies more to the commercial venture, for example, the AA Will type of operation or something like that. In my opinion, that section of the bylaw does not apply to the municipal landfill. The operations at the landfill are clearly within the scope of the landfill operation. They are a permitted use under the zoning bylaw, and no variance or special permit is required under the zoning bylaw for that operation.
Mr. Moderator,
You're recognized.
I would like to make the point, because I was a member of the ad hoc zoning committee 3 or 4 years ago. Judge Barrett of the Superior Court was the chairman of that committee. Judge Barrett and I carried that amendment on the floor of this body on that occasion. And you will recall personally that you had a sensible amendment which you tendered and which we made some suggestions to you, and between all concerned, the public was served by the acceptance of that. Now let me address myself to what the town council has just said. The bylaw, and I drew up the language, says that no person, no private individual can bring rubbish, noxious materials, trash into the town or land or landfill into the town without getting a permit. The town council can't say what was in the minds of the drafters. The drafters existed under the town's auspices, and we were appointed by the town officials, and we presented a full play for 2 hours on this floor. There never had been, up to that time, anything that restricted the bringing in by private individuals dirt, noxious materials, building construction. It's a very broad sweeping description. It was debated here, it was voted on here, and certainly the town council can't say that when Dedham collects trash, it's a Milton town operation. And the same is true of Whitman. It isn't a Milton town operation. He was not a party to that. He was not town council at the time, I don't believe. But if he was, he played no part in it. You did, I did, Judge Barrett of the Superior Court did, the chairman of the Warrant Committee did. She was a member of that ad hoc zoning committee, and she will recall the time we spent in drafting that. And it was to protect the town from what is going on now under the auspices of the 3 selectmen. And well-intentioned as they may be, I don't believe this should go forward, and I vigorously object to their support of it.
Thank you. Mr. Mullen, you're recognized. Mr. Mullen next.
Mr. Moderator, with great reluctance, I come to the microphone tonight to speak about this article, but it's something that I feel very, very strongly about. As I look at the people who submitted the article, I see friends, former friends, and some with whom I'm not so friendly. For 23 years, I have represented the town of Milton in one capacity or another. I've been up and down and over and out. But I've been very, very proud of the town of Milton. Very, very proud to serve the town of Milton. But you know what they say now? You send your trash to the town of Milton. Send your trash. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I think the best thing they do in at the State House is make rules and regulations and pass it on to the citizens of the communities to pay for them. I think it's the best thing they do. But no one has mentioned what to me is most important, more important than anything, your reputation. What do you tell your children but that your reputation is so important? Well, this old boy's reputation is not for sale. This old boy's reputation is not for sale. And I don't like to think that my town, of which I'm so proud, that their reputation is for sale either for any amount of money.
Selectman John Michael Shields.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Michael Shields, town meeting member from Precinct 2, and member for more than the last 3 years of your Board of Selectmen. Let me state that I think the main issue here on this, and I come to this with, after a lot of meetings, a lot of soul searching about the reputation of Milton, but I want to give you another aspect on the reputation of Milton. In the past few years, we have had many overrides. The Board of Selectmen, on which I've served, has been criticized quite a bit for those overrides. So let's take the problem that we have at hand. We are mandated by the Department of Environmental Protection to close our landfill by the end of 1998. The estimated cost of that closing is $9.2 million, or $9.1 million, or $9.3 million. It's all funny money at this point. But the fact of the matter is that that $9.3 million, if we include, which includes a transfer station, is a 5-year-old estimate at this point. What we have with the implementation of cash for trash, something that all 3 of the members of the Board of Selectmen that implemented this at the time had great trepidations about, it gives us $1.5 million in hand. We all remember last year on the library override, the new library override. You'll recall the cost was going to be $9 million. The state was going to give us a third. We were going to bond out $6 million. The opponents of the library override turned that $6 million into a $13 million override when you include the bonding costs and the interest. Now let's take the $1.5 million that through Trash for Cash we'll have in our hand. Let's rescind cash for trash and take away the $1.5 million that we will not have in our hand. What does that turn into? Well, it turns into $1.5 million in debt. Take the logic of the opponents of the library override, and that $1.5 million that our town now has as a debt and not cash in hand turns into a $3 million debt by the same logic that the opponents to your library override used last year. Now, if we're standing here being criticized for too many overrides, if we care about our schools, if we care about our public safety, if we feel that if we go out with too much debt, we are limiting the amount of money that the town can go out and afford to bond out in the future, then the thing to do, the prudent financial decision to make, is to take the 1.5 in hand right now. Now, how did we do that? We had a public hearing at Cunningham Hall about 2.5 years ago, and we talked about cash for trash. We brought it up. We solicited input from the neighborhood. Mr. Deneen was there. He was quite vocal, similar to what you've heard tonight. Other people, Mr. Livingston was there. he was quite vocal. But folks, Mr. Deneen, Mr. Livingston, they're very concerned public citizens, but they don't have to make the decisions. And the decisions that we made in this case came from two public hearings, a public hearing with the DEP and another public hearing about whether we should or should not go to a MEPA hearing. All of the issues were decided. And out of all those public hearings, we decided that we should have an inspector. We did hire an inspector. He is a neighbor. We have had complete DEP oversight of this situation. And I think that, you can accuse the selectmen of not being able to run it. The selectmen do not take charge day to day of that situation. But we do have an inspector. We have two people watching the landfill most of the time. And we have management people there in the morning and in the afternoon to make sure things are right when they come in and when they leave. Folks, this $9 million is the biggest issue of the 90s for our town. And we have to reduce that cost in order to protect the rest of our town budgets. And I would say that even though we come to it reluctantly, we must carry on and continue with cash for trash. Thank you.
Diane Agostino is recognized.
Mr. Moderator, before I make my statement, I have some questions that I'd like answered, and they're the same questions that we've heard since 1994. And we don't seem to get the answers, and I'm happy to see Mr. Deneen's up and healthy and here this year. On the landfill now being a commercial venture, the Board of Appeals hasn't addressed it tonight. I also would like to point out that our bylaws have one sentence in it that do not allow anywhere in the town noxious odors. So as far as the DEP reading our bylaws, they don't read our bylaws. They worry about their law and take care of that. So those are two issues that have been raised continuously and have not been addressed. The second issue being the DEP, as far as we've been told, does not look at what Milton's bylaws are. In fact, Senator Paul White's office has been asked to address the question on a commercial venture and still has not gotten back to us. So this question has been around for well over 6 months, ladies and gentlemen. When we talk about, do you want to write them down? There's 5 questions.
I need a specific question. What's your first question?
The commercial venture question. This used to be in the bylaw. It reads just like Mr. Livingston first read his first statement.
What's the question?
The bylaw reads that this is a municipal landfill.
Yeah.
It's now a commercial venture. Since this was not approved by the Board of Appeals, where did the approval come from? It never came before town meeting for approval. So where was the approval to all of a sudden accept the out-of-town trash venture? Right. The second question has come up from several individuals. We keep hearing $1.5 million in our pocket. Ladies and gentlemen, there are startup costs to every business. We have asked this question since 1994. I know that we have an environmental lawyer now on our payroll, not our payroll, but also who's being funded for this purpose. And the last time I asked, he was paid well over $11,000. When this consent decree was drawn up, which includes the next override, he was there to make sure that the word override was missing, but debt exclusion is in here. That's a major expense, whether it be legal expenses or, look at on Sunday, we had one of our chief administrators of the DPW driving around at double time picking up surveys on the landfill. These are startup costs that we have asked over the years, not just the town meeting members, but many residents, how much it costs. We keep hearing from the town officials that so much time is being spent at the landfill that we can't use our manpower elsewhere. One resident just asked me, how come the public works budget has gone up? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we had kept track of our startup costs, there's no doubt in anyone's mind in this room that $1.5 million is not all a plus. That's number 2.
I'm sorry, I don't get
the startup costs.
Now, Diane, Ms. Agostino, you're interspersing your comments with the questions.
I know, I'm
and I assure you I'm not the only one that's not getting the questions. So precisely what is the second question? Why don't you give me your 5 questions? And then
all startup costs.
I mean, what's the question?
What are all the startup costs?
What are the startup costs?
Since 1994, legal fees, everything. Number 3.
Third question?
How, according to this document, and we've repeatedly been told that there was an escrow account set up, what Mass General law was used for the escrow account?
What general law to establish the escrow account?
Right, and when was that escrow account established?
Okay.
Number 3, we've also asked repeatedly, the towns we currently admit trash from, how many hazardous waste collections a year do they have?
From the towns from whom we collect?
Right.
How many hazardous waste?
Number
Collection?
4, and I believe the most important question here, when we began tonight, the priest mentioned that we should be most solicitous of those who come after us. And we're talking about capping and closing the landfill. But we have not addressed or begun to address what the cost is for where the leachate will be going that leaves the landfill. This is an unlined landfill. Therefore, what will be the cost to correct the leachate problem coming out of the landfill? Many residents in my neighborhood surmise that if you live downstream heading towards Quarry or Lyman, that you're the only individuals that are going to have a problem with the leaching. But in discussions with the individuals who have done the testing, there's actually a river that comes off the back of the landfill and goes around behind, across Randolph Ave, through Wallaston Golf Course, and on to all the community. So, there's a new sign up also that points out the watershed is right here in our district. So that's my next question. When we're talking about costs, what are their projected costs for plume containment?
For what?
It's called the plume of a landfill, the leachate, the hazardous waste. It's kind of like a jelly donut, and eventually it all comes out somewhere.
I have it as what's the projected cost of cleaning up the leaching problem?
That's correct,
Close
in the
enough for those
future.
who-
And then I'd appreciate a minute to make a final statement.
All right, thank you. Does anyone from the Board of Selectmen wish to address these 5 questions?
We'll begin our presentation with Mr. Haskell. I'll ask him to come up. He's from Camp Tressa McKee, and he will address the leachate questions.
You're recognized, Mr. Haskell.
Okay, my name is Bruce Haskell with Camp Tressa McKee. I'm the engineer responsible for the monitoring and assessment of the landfill. Over the last 2 years, we've done this extensive monitoring program as required by the DEP to determine if there is a problem at the landfill, and this was discussed at the last public hearing. That was put into a report called a Comprehensive Site Assessment, which determined that the landfill, including the leachate, which is the water that has come in contact with the waste, was not creating a significant threat to human health, safety, and environment in its existing uncapped condition. That report's been submitted to DEP and is under final review by them, and we believe that they concur with that opinion. The monitoring that's done at the site is immediately around the landfill, in other words, at the edge of waste, so the worst possible conditions for groundwater and surface water at the landfill, and that has not shown a significant contamination at that point. As it travels further away from the landfill, and it's more of a seasonal stream falling from the landfill through the wetlands, that water will dilute and become much more significantly less contaminated or impacted than it is to the landfill. I shouldn't even use the word contaminated. Thank you. Plume, I'm sorry. There is no real plume from this landfill in the sense that there's a very local impact to the groundwater around the site. It's a very local impact. It doesn't travel very far extensively off the site through the wetlands and does not get near in the residents due to the sampling that we've done.
Thank you, Mr. Haskell. Does anyone from the Board of Selectmen wish to address the other questions on the floor? Mr. Neal, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Okay, in early 1994, January 18th, Town Council wrote a letter explaining what had to be done, explaining Section A on revolving fund and Section B dealing with General Law, Chapter 44, Section 28C. And the town responded by sending a letter in April. On April 6, 1994, the Board of Selectmen established the escrow account under provisions of Chapter 44, Section 28C. And the town continued to deposit, for example, the $11,000 was deposited in that account between April of 94 and July 1st of 1995. Trash for Cash, as I stated, began in the second half of 1995. So the town deposited the funds in an account that essentially was kept as a segregated account by the town accountant. The town has listened to a number of questions about what is an escrow account. And so as a result of that, the town today, to forestall the issue of arguing about an escrow account, transferred the funds to another bank account in order to make all happy in terms of where the money is. So the money has been maintained, as are hundreds of other accounts, in a bank account. But this particular fund was taken out of the main bank account today and placed in a separate account to forestall a long debate about what type of bank account should be held. In the meantime, the state has had this information in their hands for a year. No complaints. But this turns out to be an issue, frankly, that I don't think is an issue. So again, it's been in a segregated account. There have been no expenditures against that. But we transfer the funds today to another bank account. I appreciate the assistance of the treasurer in doing that. The other issue, in terms of how many towns have hazardous waste, we don't have the answer for that. We'll have to research that. In terms of the startup cost, I don't have with us at this point in time the startup cost, and that would be a significant issue in terms of definition, because the fact that Mr. Haskell, for example, performs services for the town is related to the fact that the town has an uncapped landfill that one way or the other would have to be shut down. So whether we have trash for cash or not, we would employ the services of an environmental engineer. So it is very difficult to go back and suggest how much additional time he has spent on the site, since the landfill would still be open accepting Milton trash. So we do not have, at this particular meeting, the answer to that question as to what the startup costs are, nor do we agree at this point probably on the definition of what startup costs are. And the first question I have down as a note was the question of whether this was a municipal landfill. And in the eyes of the state, Department of Environmental Protection, we have met all the standards for what is called a municipal landfill. We have, in fact, had our extension granted under the statute that was passed in the legislature. I believe Representative Hines was the sponsor of that legislation. So, in fact, our extension was granted not under a commercial application, but under legislation directed at city and town municipal landfills. So we believe we meet the definition of what's a municipal landfill. The state certainly believes that. They regulate us on that basis. And I believe we have at least addressed, if not answered, all 5 questions.
Town Council John Flynn.
Mr. Moderator, I believe there was also a question about zoning, and in my opinion, the use of the landfill, including all of its present operations, is not a commercial venture, is not a use that requires either a special permit or a variance under the zoning bylaws. It is permitted. It is a permitted use under the zoning bylaws.
And you're recognized for purposes of making your comments.
Mr. Moderator, I don't know if Mr. Deneen's question was answered, though, on the bylaw with the removal of the solid fill and all.
I believe that was addressed. So, do you wish to make comments on this article?
Yes, I do.
You're recognized to do so.
As far as hazardous waste, ladies and gentlemen, that would result in the plume eventually being developed at the landfill. The landfill is unlined, and the DEP or EPA, anyone will tell you someday it will all leach out. All the hazardous waste will leach out. We're talking right here about out-of-town trash, but what's covering up that out-of-town trash? Do you remember the previous town meetings where we talked about residents concerned about contaminated soil? You can go up there some days and the whole area will smell of oil because the soil is contaminated. And it does say that right here in the consent decree. It does state that it is contaminated soil. It's within a specific degree, but all of that soil, all that contamination, whatever is in there will eventually seep down. So hazardous waste should be a concern. I called the town of Whitman today to find out that their last hazardous waste collection was May of '95. Their future planned hazardous waste collection, late '97, early '98. As a Milton resident, I am very cautious about what goes into my trash. As a Whitman resident, anything and everything can go out to the town curbside. My next door neighbor moved to Whitman, and she comes here to visit her mother and is amazed that she actually can take the stuff to Whitman and get it thrown in the Milton landfill for cheaper money. Number two, it's true, she talks about that all the time. Number two, the escrow account. How many, you read right here, an escrow account was established. We've gone to every resident who lives in that area who's followed this, has been very concerned about where the revenues generated from out-of-town trash have been going. One meeting we went to, one of town officials said, yes, there was an escrow account. One official nodded their head and said, no, there wasn't. Well, today, in talking to the DEP, I've raised the issue once again because all the residents keep raising it. The Department of Revenue over a year ago pointed out that Chapter 44, Section 28C is a very unused law. The reason towns don't use 28C is because it mandates 100% user fee reimbursement for solid waste. Is everyone seated here willing to accept 28C? In other words, are we going to have user fees for all the trash we put out? This legal item is paramount to what's going on in this room tonight. Where are the facts? Where is what is correct? The other option listed in the consent decree, aside from an escrow account, which the DEP also faxed me an escrow account. An escrow account does not mean that you open a new savings account, that you move the money from one account to the other. An escrow account, as any lawyer could stand up and tell me tonight, means it's in the custody of another individual until such time as the money is disposed of. The other option in the consent decree was Chapter 4453.5F, the enterprise funds. This all revolves around where your money is, and I'm sure if you look at the document we were handed, there was no interest accruing separately on that money. That's also in the consent decree. The DEP did a great job at trying to protect the residents of the town of Milton by having the funds available for capping and closure. That hasn't been done, and it won't be over tonight, and I do urge you to vote no.
Is there any further discussion under Article 27? John? Mr. Flynn is recognized.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, a legal question was raised that I think I should respond to. Chapter 44, Section 28C is a lengthy statute, and it has several subsections. The part of that statute that's been an issue tonight prior to the last remarks was the statute that allows the town to collect and deposit fees for the use of the landfill and to use those fees for any legitimate landfill purpose, including without limitation, closure of the landfill, capping of the landfill, and related issues. That's the basis upon which the Board of Selectmen have been accepting the money for out-of-town trash, which is authorized by statute. The statute is not a local acceptance statute, which means that it applies generally to towns, and in the case of Milton, Milton does not have to accept the statute by vote of town meeting. There are several other sections of that statute that are not at issue tonight. One of the other subsections has to do with borrowing. Chapter 44, Section 28C allows towns to borrow under that statute for landfill purposes. That statute is not widely used for borrowing, and one of the reasons it's not widely used is because of the restrictive provisions you heard before. This town, along with most other towns in my experience, borrows money for landfill purposes under Chapter 44 of the general laws because, in the opinion of our bond council, which I share, that statute, Chapter 44, is much more practical for the town of Milton. It doesn't contain the restrictions for borrowing that Chapter 44, Section 28C contains. In other words, the borrowing section of the enabling statute is not at issue here tonight and has not been used by the town of Milton. That section of the statute, Chapter 44, Section 28C, which authorizes collection, deposit, and expenditure of fee money, is at issue, and that is the statute which has been used by the town of Milton. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, Steve Morash, Precinct 2. I know the hour is late. I can see people fidgeting around here. I ask you to bear with us for a few minutes. Your children and your grandchildren's safety may be at stake here. So please bear with us as town meeting members. I'm not sure where I am on this issue right now. I know there's a lot of unresolved issues. I agree with Mr. Mullen. Our reputation is at stake here, what we're doing. There's been a lot of questions asked tonight. I'm not sure we've got all the answers on this yet. But I am shocked that just today we found an account to put all this money in. Before anybody knew the question was going to be raised tonight, that issue was already taken care of. I see other issues that make me very uncomfortable, but mostly it's our reputation. And I think the reputation here in Milton right now is we're dealing with symptoms and not our main problem. The problem here is not $1.5 million for covering a trash and a dump. It's what are we going to do with our economic future here in Milton? That's some of the issues we need to get down to, I think, in this town. And I know it doesn't really pertain to some of the issues we're talking about at the dump. But as we fight about nickels and dimes and $200,000 for the fire department or a fire engine or how much money we're going to spend on the dump, it's about economic rebirth of this town that we all have to start dealing with. We're still fighting with symptoms here. And $1.5 million as opposed to $7 million still doesn't make too much sense to me. The big issue is, what are we going to do in the long term here? Those are the issues. What kind of schools are we going to have here? Why do we spend more money on cemeteries than we do on parks and recreation in this town? That's a question I'd like before we leave today. I'm not sure exactly what this is all about. I'd like to move this question as quickly as I can, too. But those are some of the issues I'm going to be thinking about when I vote on this issue.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Martha Kemp, Precinct 7. I'm looking at the clock and I'm noticing it's 10:30, and I asked the town meeting members to I beg your indulgence. I'm kind of new at this. This is only my 4th year, but I had some real questions that if I don't ask my questions, I'm going to feel terrible when I leave.
Feel free to ask your question.
I'd like to, my question is, how do I go about revisiting Article 26 for the purpose of asking my questions? I noted the time when we voted on Article 26 was 9:35, and I believe you said we had within an hour to reconsider an article. And I really did have a couple of questions on Article 26, and I would like to know how I go about trying to reconsider that article, and is this the right time to ask this question?
Well, we're in the middle of an article.
I know, and I've been waiting.
You do have an hour to request reconsideration. Now, I'll have to consult with the clerk as to when that vote was taken. Otherwise, it would take a 2/3 vote to go back to that article. So, you give me a moment. Do you know? Now, the question is if you have questions or it's your desire to actually have a motion to reconsider the vote on Article 26. If you do so, a majority would rule on the issue of whether it be reconsidered if it's made in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I guess I'd ask that it's reconsidered.
You want to make a motion to reconsider Article 26?
Yes, please.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded to reconsider Article 26. Now, I'm doing this out of order and interrupting our proceedings under Article 27.
There's been a long discussion. I've been waiting for the hour, and I didn't know when I could do it.
All right. Do you wish to address your... I will take this as a motion now because we're within 5 minutes of the hour to expire.
Thank you.
Since you have been waiting. If the rest of you will bear with me on Article 27. All right. Now, do you wish to address your motion as to why you wish to have Article 26 reconsidered, please?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, town meeting members, for your patience. I really appreciate it. I'm shaking inside, and I just... If I went home and I didn't ask my questions, I'd feel bad.
You're doing quite fine. Don't worry.
Okay? I noticed tonight in the Patriot Ledger, there was an article about a similar proposal in Cohasset. They were looking for a 50-50 split to work on a sewer project. I think the total of their project was a lot more money, $6.3 million. And what they were trying to do in Cohasset was sort of a good neighbor policy where you spread the cost across town, and they were putting it to the taxpayers. And my question, I had a couple of questions in regard to that. One was, why are we putting it to only the ratepayers and not spreading it all the way across town to all of the taxpayers? That was the first question. The second question is, if a homeowner in town is on a cesspool, then they are not a ratepayer, is that correct? And they would be taxpayers, but not ratepayers. So under the way you've organized this article, while I understand the spirit of it to spread the cost around, and I want everyone who lives on all those streets, Forbes Hill, Milton Hill, to understand I don't disagree with, helping out, and I have no problem with that.
Okay,
It's just, I'm wondering, are we not spreading it around all across town?
I think I get the gist of your questions, okay? And I'm going to move then to, unless somebody else wants to speak, to a vote as to whether we're going to reopen it. But I want to assure you, okay, that if it's not reopened, I am quite confident that Mr. Neely can explain to you and give you the logical answers to all your questions, okay?
Thank you. The other quick question was, what percentage of homeowners in Milton are not ratepayers?
Okay.
And what, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I asked them these questions and I got the answer, so you're going to be able to get them. But now that I've entertained this motion, it's been seconded.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a vote on whether to reopen Article 26. All those in favor of reopening Article 26, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay. So we'll leave this where I indicated. If you'll consult with, right after the meeting, whether we can do it tonight or sometime, you'll be able to explain the answers to your questions. Does anyone else wish to speak to Article 27 that we're on? We've had full debate, okay? The Warrant Committee has recommended no, so you are voting for the article if you vote aye, and you're voting with the Warrant Committee if you vote no. All those in favor of the article say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The noes have it. The article is defeated. All right, there are 7 persons standing, so that indicates that there's a challenge to my calling of the vote. So we will now proceed to a stand-up vote. And in Section 1, which is to my left, the tellers, you may all be seated. Christopher Tingus and Harrison Williams will count in this section. In the center section, Phil Kleiman and Dagmar Pollux, and they are to count the stage and the Selectmen's Committee, the Board of Selectmen. And on the far right, Kenneth Caldwell and Helen Lucy would count this section and the Warrant Committee table. All right. Jimmy says, Dagmar Pollux is not here. Bob Sheffield, would you be willing to serve as a counter? Center section. All right. Those of you who voted aye, all stand. Ayes at a stand. And if you're a town meeting member, stand within the demarcation, so you'll be counted. As to who? Okay. To my left, Christopher Tingus and Harrison Williams for that section. In the center, Phil Kleiman and Bob Sheffield, and that includes the Board of Selectmen table. Section 3, Ken Caldwell and Helen Lucy.
Any of you standing?
You don't understand the yeses and nos. The yes, you're voting for the article. The no, you're voting with the Warrant Committee, which has recommended no. So if you're in favor of Article 27, you're voting aye. You're standing right now. Section 3 counted? You're counted, Bob? All right, ayes, sit down. Noes, stand.
One row right here.
No, I'm going to ask for a roll. The day that poisonous stream goes right through the golf course and down through the center of Milton,
You ready, Bob? All right, everyone may be seated. You were terrific on that one. Section 1. All right, everybody sit down and be quiet. Section 1, reporting Mr. Williams.
42 no, 19 yes.
Section 2.
14 no, 85 yes.
What?
14 yes, 85 no.
14 yes, 85 no. Section 3.
Section 3, 35 yes, 39 no.
Okay, the article has been defeated by a vote of 166 to 68. There were 68 yes and 166 no. Okay, at this time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn till 7:30 tomorrow. So a second, all those in favor say aye. Mr. Livingston, could I see you afterwards? And remember, Ann Coughlin, if you come at 6:30, you will be able to see the science facility.